Welcome back in, everybody. Adam and I are here to continue our player series, this time on the man, Brandon Aiyuk, wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, or as I like to refer to him, Aiyukin. Let's go. Is he ready to explode this year in 2022? Let's find out. So right now, Brandon Aiyuk has an ADP on Adiko. Shout out to Adiko's ADP tool, pulling all the data from Sleeper, of 901. Wide receiver 38. And surprisingly, Adam, what this doesn't happen a lot, Keep Trade Cut is more bullish on Brandon Aiyuk. Usually they hate everybody that we like. Wide receiver 36. So nothing crazy, but he's up there. Adam, what do you got on Brandon Aiyuk? What are your thoughts on him for this year?
First of all, everything for me comes down to a lot of times value, right? Aiyuk's a guy that I was very in on last year. Got a little bit over our skis, right? Like, if I go back and look at last year, Mike, he was coming off the board right before it got to the season start. He was coming off the board at wide receiver 15.
Ooh.
Like, it really had peaked then, right? And there were people in the community that were pushing him into the top 10. And he was a target for us in that 6th, 7th round pretty regularly because we like to take our receivers later. So I was exposed to him, and unfortunately this year, he got in the doghouse. But like, when you think about where he was valued last year, Mike, and then you think about what he did down the stretch this season, and now you think about what you just alluded to, the 9th round. To me, Mike, like, this is one of the value buys where the only issue is I'm too exposed already, so it's hard to get overly more exposed. But like Brandon Aiyuk in the 9th round, like, man, it's hard to find a player in that range that's more to like both on the Dynasty side for youth and on the contending side for what he's going to do points per game.
You touched on it there too. Wide receiver 38, wide receiver 36 in value, respectively, between the two services. Man, and you touched on the doghouse. Brandon Aiyuk was in the doghouse for, it seemed like, forever. To start this season, absolutely ever. But week 8 onward, guess what? Brandon Aiyuk got out of the doghouse. Brandon Aiyuk emerged from the doghouse. And if we just look at week 8 on, his first week out of the doghouse where he started getting a snap share again, Brandon Aiyuk averaged 13.14 fantasy points per game. So 13.1, which would have been good enough for wide receiver 26 on the year. So you're getting almost a 10-spot, 12-spot value bump on Brandon Aiyuk if you believe that outside of the doghouse, him not being in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse is the true Brandon Aiyuk and not the doghouse Brandon Aiyuk. At his current cost, Adam, I'm more than willing to take the shot on that because of 13.1 points per game. Now, nothing sexy, but wide receiver 26, that's going to be a starter for me every single week.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head too, right? The thing to really think about when I get into this, okay, like if I play devil's advocate, right? There's Deebo Samuel, maybe he comes back. Trey Lance, new quarterback situation. If George Kittle stays healthy. I think these are some of the narratives and some of the thought processes that are keeping Brandon Aiyuk in this 9th round. But to me, Mike, the thing is, in the 9th round, even if some of that's true, like what you just alluded to, that was with Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe not even as good of a quarterback as Trey Lance could be. That was with George Kittle, albeit he was in and out of the lineup, and Deebo Samuel out there, although he's playing running back. Like, that was with all that. So even if he flops and he's not, wide receiver 15 like he was down the stretch, but he's more of a wide receiver 2, you're still winning. But I think what's not being touched on is if he's not in the doghouse and he's playing a full season, which, once again, go back to 2020, Mike, and look at the back half of the season from week 8 on when he was getting 10 targets, 14 targets, 9 targets, 16 targets, 13 targets. That was what we fell in love with Brandon Aiyuk, right? It's honestly not much different. They're close to mirror images. The difference is now the startup cost is drastically different. So the risk for me is so much lower. Like if Brandon Aiyuk doesn't fire this year and he's a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, that's where you drafted him at, Mike. You drafted him at wide receiver 38. Like, what we're not talking about and where he's going is what if he's wide receiver 15 in year 3? What if he does a full year of that? And now we're like, oh man, the polarizing prospect, the long arms, athlete, freak that is tied to Trey Lance. And maybe Trey Lance takes a step forward. Like, none of that's baked into taking him in the 9th round. And ultimately for me, those are some of the points where, like, I couldn't imagine based on last summer, I'm more in on Brandon Aiyuk, but here we are. I'm more in on Brandon Aiyuk.
Does the transition from Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance change anything for you in the spectrum of Brandon Aiyuk? Because I know for me, I've watched so much bad Jimmy overthrow Brandon Aiyuk by like four to five rows in the fucking stands that there's no possible way Trey Lance is worse at throwing the football to our guy Brandon Aiyuk.
I mean, I guess, like, if I'm being truthful, like, could the passing volume come down slightly? Sure. But like you just alluded to, Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't like a push the ball downfield guy, right? Brandon Aiyuk has big play upside. And if Trey Lance, listen, maybe Trey Lance isn't the accuracy guy initially and he has some ups and downs, but if he ends up hitting, like we've seen him unleash that ball, like, if Brandon Aiyuk now can take some of these shots where he's not, that's the one thing about him having George Kittle and having, Deebo Samuel. He's not going to have a ton of coverage and people eyes on him. If he gets down the field and Trey Lance can hit him, like, you could be looking at a different ceiling than we've even seen the last 2 years. None of that's baked into the 9th round, Mike.
Perfect. I have vivid memories last year of Brandon Aiyuk snapping off Trayvon Diggs' ankles of the Dallas Cowboys and then getting overthrown by about 20 yards.
20 yards. Oh.
Absolutely.
It's the highlight that we could never see because there was no catch,
Nope. So let's look at the cost of acquisition for Brandon Aiyuk. Right now, he's being valued less than a late 24 first on Keep Trade Cut. A late 24 first. If you could guarantee your first in 2024 is late, I would send that all day for Brandon Aiyuk. Some other receivers in the area, me personally, I would rather have Brandon Aiyuk over Juju Smith-Schuster, Gabe Davis. I'm a known Gabe Davis hater. Sky Moore, another Kansas City wide receiver. Amari Cooper, no Deshaun Watson. Give me Brandon Aiyuk. A guy we like, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would rather have Brandon Aiyuk. Amon-Ra's got his own question marks. And a guy who's been off injured, and we've really only seen it for 1 year, Mike Williams. Understand he's tied to Justin Herbert. Give me Brandon Aiyuk. And the most egregious one I could find, the absolute most disgusting one I could absolutely imagine, Clyde motherfucking Edwards-Helaire is going before Brandon Aiyuk in startup ADP. What are we doing? I would send my any Clyde Edwards-Helaire share I have all day for one Brandon Aiyuk.
Man. Like, that's the slander? Clyde Edwards, never seen him, Helaire. Like, we're talking about Rojo on these shows sometimes so often because that's how little Clyde Edwards-Helaire has done. And you can, sign me up for that. If it's a late 24 first, if you can send any second, I don't care if you even know it's going to be early, Mike. I don't care the build. I'm sending a second for Brandon Aiyuk in a heartbeat. Man, I think it's time to be real. Go get your guy because, listen, the price that you're buying is baked in that he's not going to pop. So if he doesn't, you're not really losing much in value. I think the reality that you have to think about is if this guy hits for a season and he's not in the shenanigans doghouse, look out. Look out.
I think he's ready to explode. At cost, I am a buyer on Brandon Aiyuk. That's going to do it for us here. Short Brandon Aiyuk. Aiyukin!
Aiyukin!
Make sure, if you want more information about Brandon Aiyuk or some other values and buys, maybe even a few sells that we don't like, come check us out. Patreon.com/South Harmon. $1 gets you in the door. And now offering yearly membership. We've been doing it long enough. We can bring you a full year. Appreciate you tapping in. Hit that like and subscribe. We're out of here.